Okay. Okay, I think we're just waiting for Laurel as the last bit that we need. Oh.
Hi, Kelechuko. I can't seem to hear you. Are you speaking to us or you're mute?
Oh, hi, Smiler. How are you? I was actually on mute as
I'm
well.
fine. Oh, okay. Okay. I was wondering.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I wasn't speaking to. I'll have unmuted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The thing is, we're waiting for just a couple of attendees to log on, and then we can start driving this.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm actually live. I'm live. I'm live. I'm live. No problem. Oh, okay. Yes, good morning, everyone, and you're welcome to Rack Center's live stream of the second webinar series for this year 2023. All right, so just doing a quick check with our panelists and participants as well. And okay, we're live. So good morning and thanks for joining in. Like I mentioned earlier, this is RAC Center second live stream of webinars for 2023. And we're doing this on the back of the first webinar that happened in March 2023, which then was focused on our carriers and network provider ecosystem. So then the theme of that webinar was actually the role of internet exchanges and how service providers can leverage on pairing to drive business and ecosystem growth here in Nigeria. So for this current webinar, we're going to be looking at promoting cloud neutrality and cloud adoption as it refers to small and medium scale businesses in Nigeria, and how can they actually run cost effectively and drive business efficiencies in that direction. So the theme for today's webinar is actually quite timely, in our opinion. And that's when you look at two broad views. First of all, on micro and small, medium enterprises, which is actually the part of the theme for today's webinar. And we also look at some of the data out there that has to do with MSMEs. One of such figures comes from the National Bureau of Statistics, which emphasizes the fact that presently MSMEs contribute about 48.5% of Nigeria's GDP. And that segment of businesses accounts for 96% of total businesses in Nigeria today. And these figures are as at December 2022. So going by the scale and the impact that MSMEs have in the in the economy today, we thought it very important or quite strategic to target this webinar at that business segment. Also, looking at the theme, what also hits you is the fact about cloud neutrality. Simply put, cloud neutrality is just providing unhindered access, to multiple cloud provider offerings to a wide range of customers. So it's basically just removing constraints and allowing customers to choose their cloud service providers, from the list. So this concept of cloud neutrality aligns with RAC Center's value propositions of cloud and carrier neutrality. And in the last 10 years that we've been operating as a business, right, RAC Center has come to build the largest ecosystem of cloud and carrier partners. And as such, RAC Center has also become the de facto hub or marketplace when it comes to integrated telecom solutions as a whole. So therein lies the focus, and the theme for today's webinar, which on a broad view is promoting cloud neutrality and using cloud adoption as a cost-effective and business-efficient direction for micro and small type businesses in Nigeria. So given this background, within the next 2 hours, we're going to be debunking some of the myths and interrogating a lot of the truths about cloud adoption. And to do justice to this subject, we have a diverse team of panelists who will be discussing, one, from a global perspective, because we have Oracle in the room, we have Microsoft in the room. These are cloud providers that have done quite a lot, across multiple geographies, across different market segments, and also across emerging as well as advanced economies. Also in the room, we have a truly indigenous cloud company that's going to be bringing a lot of local knowledge into the discourse. And then right beside that as well, we have a regional provider, one who has presence across 16 cities in Africa. Now, we thought to balance this discourse by also introducing a cloud user, a cloud business user who have built quite an expansive platform for fintechs and financial services to host on their infrastructure. So they're going to be bringing the views of a business user to the discourse. So that being said, I would want to first of all introduce the first speaker. But before I do that, maybe we should just run through the agenda, what we're going to be doing here today, and keeping you engaged for the next 2 hours. So we'll start out just like I've done with a bit of introduction, and then we will go straight into the first presentation. That first presentation will be driven by Oracle, and I will introduce the representative who will do justice to that presentation. We'll spend about 15 minutes doing that, following which we'll just jump straight into the panel discussion, where we will have representatives from both Oracle, Microsoft, and CyberCloud, which is the local indigenous cloud provider I mentioned earlier. Right after that, we'll have a second presentation. And this time around, it will be coming from the business user in the room, giving us their perspective on cloud adoption and how it has helped to drive efficiencies generally, in their business. And right after that second presentation, we will have another panel discussion, this time around with Microsoft again and the representative from Core Technologies. So with that platform built, I'd want us to go straight into the first presentation that will be taken by Ismaila Salami. Ismaila Salami is an experienced technology specialist with an impressive history of driving revenues through the design, implementation, and management of technology projects across Nigeria. He's a thought leader in computer networking, unified communications, cybersecurity, cloud technologies, and project management. Before this current role in Oracle, Ismaila had previously worked with Lloyd Anderson, Iteco Nigeria, Telnet Nigeria. Now, let me take a minute to say that Telnet Nigeria, has to be recognized as one of the premier technology companies that has churned out some of the best minds we have in technology today. And Ismaila also had a stint with Active Edge Technologies, where he was the head of infrastructure and cloud services. Ismaila holds a bachelor's in mathematics and computer and has added an MBA to his kitty as well. So Ismaila, please take us through your presentation, and we'll come back to the viewers right after that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kelechuku, and good morning, everyone. I hope I'm audible enough.
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
Okay, all right. So I'll just share my screen and take us through a short presentation that we have. Okay, Kelechuku, can you confirm that you can see my screen? Hi, Kelechuku, just confirm if you can see my screen.
Yes, I can. Please go ahead.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. So once again, good morning, everyone. And my presentation is basically going to be around, showing how cloud services help you to enhance your business efficiency. And I'll just go straight into it. So, before we look at, where we are and where we're going to, it's always interesting to look at where we've been, what we're doing today, and what the future holds. So we're just going to look very quickly at, some interesting business technology trends that have, been the case over time. So the first part is about yesterday. 5 to 10 years ago, there was a lot of noise about organizations, becoming digital. So a lot of noise around digitization and digitalization. And that involved moving away from that paper-based era that we had lots of organizations experiencing. So, with that came into play with ERPs, workflow applications. A lot of people started converting, analog to digital. We started having, digital signing of documents. A lot of things came into place. And then afterwards, there was now a case of, okay, we have all these documents, we have all this data that is being generated. What do we do to this data? So then the data warehouse concept became more popular. And then with that, what that meant is you had to start cataloging this data, structuring this data, making this data useful so that you could take advantage of this data when you're trying to do your business, try to make business decisions and grow your business, make your business more efficient, more effective. And then, of course, there was BYOD, became talk of the town. Now, organizations started allowing users to bring their own devices to their offices and be able to do a lot of things. And then after that, at that point, talk of digital transformation became the key thing. Everybody wanted to digitally transform their business, to be able to take advantage of technologies that were coming up, including the likes of cloud computing and faster networks. Started adding intelligence and analytics to all this data that was being, put together and collected, and that's where cloud really came into its own. So today, I would say within the last 2-3 years, plus the issue with COVID-19 that forced a lot of companies to really rapidly adopt digital transformation, cloud became talk of the day. And of course, we can't forget all the talk about 5G and how 5G seemed like, some people even thought 5G will come in and end the world. And then it became what it is now. Even in Nigeria, we now have 5G networks coming up. There's a lot of places around the world that 5G is already running, and it opens up a lot of possibilities. There's a lot of speed, a lot of performance benefits that can be gotten from that. So cloud computing is now becoming the norm. It's no longer some mystical technology, and it's being adopted by everyone. And of course, business intelligence and analytics. So there's a lot of intelligence and analytics that is coming out from all this data that is being generated, that has been digitized, that has been, moved onto the cloud platforms. So the point is, what is tomorrow talking about? We're already seeing a lot of discussions around the likes of generative and adaptive AI. So we have things like ChatGPT. A lot of people are making noise about how ChatGPT is changing things. You have basically a platform that can adapt, give you answers to questions, give you thoughts, mimic human behavior to a very large extent. And it's only going to become, bigger and better. You have super apps. There's a lot of talks around super apps. So you have one app that more or less covers everything that the customer requires or tries to do. And then a lot of this around this, if you look at banking in particular, businesses that have to do with financial services, they're looking at how to have super apps to keep all your customers and consumers on that single platform. Of course, I don't really need to say much about the metaverse. We have Mark Zuckerberg talking about the metaverse and how augmented and virtual reality is the way to go. Now, all of these technologies of tomorrow require a lot of computing power. They require a lot of flexibility, which the cloud is what can provide you with all these capabilities, the ability to be able to meet this and a whole lot more trends that will come into play. So I'll move to the next slide. There are a couple of interesting statistics that you find on this page. These are independent reports, by the way, from Gartner. Gartner has looked at applications, and we've seen that 50% of in-house of applications are still in-house. But it means that 50% of applications have already moved to the cloud. So there's a lot of cloud adoption that is going on. And of course, there must be reasons why this is happening. Not just adopting cloud. 451 Group also says that 97% of organizations in the cloud are now looking at multi-cloud strategies. So that means we talk more into what cloud neutrality is all about. So how do we take advantage of the best capabilities of different cloud services? And data is getting more and more proliferated every day. IDC says at the average enterprise, there are around 400 data sources. So there's so much data. And what are we doing with this data? In the digital transformation journey, a lot of customers have been saying transformation is not easy. So people are trying to transform, and so a lot of people are not getting it right. People are looking for more efficiency. There's a lot of regulation because there's a lot of demand. The things around data privacy laws, the things around data residency, and so many other things that come up. There's a lot of drive for innovation. Customers are demanding more from businesses. They want a lot of stability. They want new products, new services to come up on the fly. And basically, businesses must adapt faster to be able to survive today's business requirements. So Gartner is predicting that by 2026, 75% of organizations will adopt, digital transformation in some form, and it will be based on cloud as the fundamental underlying platform because of the benefits that that cloud provides to the users. So talking about cloud in itself, I just felt important to mention this. When we look at cloud, when we talk about cloud, the typical cloud that most people are used to is when we talk about the public cloud. So this is your typical public hosted service where you are in public regions and you could locate your workloads anywhere, maybe in London, maybe in Johannesburg, and the likes. But it goes much beyond that. When you're talking about cloud now, you need to look at other cloud offerings. So multi-cloud, which drives towards cloud neutrality, is something that is becoming more and more required when it comes to customers' needs. So customers want to have the flexibility of being able to move between cloud services, have their workloads in different environments, and still be able to get the best results. They want to be able to have hybrid cloud. So that's having a combination of their on-premise and public cloud infrastructure. And there are even customers that are looking at a dedicated cloud setup. So you have some customers that have sovereign requirements, maybe a government entity that needs to have its own cloud region to be able to meet demands of a very large populace. And this shows that the cloud is very, very flexible and it gives a lot of choice, not just the typical public cloud that a lot of us are used to. So moving into those benefits itself, what are those things that actually make your business more efficient? And it's pretty straightforward. With cloud, you're able to accomplish more with less effort. One key thing is automation. A lot of things are automated when it comes to the cloud. They are trying to provision instances. They are, to set up servers. They are trying to, manage your databases. You have things like autonomous databases that can self-heal, self-manage. There's a lot of benefits. If you're looking at things like application development, you will have no-code and low-code development platforms that exist in the cloud. So a lot of manual effort is taken out, and this helps make businesses more efficient if you are leveraging these platforms. So also your applications, you have your on-premise applications where you're looking at adopting cloud. It takes away all the restrictions that you have as regards your hardware and what you can really do. So if you have your physical hardware, you might be restricted by, you need a particular amount of memory, you need a certain types of processor, maybe even the age of your infrastructure. But with cloud, all of this is taken away. So you have your on-premise applications, maybe ERPs and the likes that you can very simply move to the cloud and begin to get a lot of benefits that have to do with flexibility, scalability, and the likes. And of course, I talked about being able to leverage multiple cloud platforms. So of course, some services might be available in certain cloud services that you can take advantage of. There are lots of advanced capabilities when it comes to things around machine learning, AI, and the rest that you really need a cloud skill environment to be able to take advantage of that. Then moving forward, we also talk about the ability to innovate. So it's a demand, it's a requirement for lots of organizations now to be able to innovate very quickly, to be able to meet new demands that customers have. So we're talking about complete greenfields where you could actually launch products, launch services within days, not the ones that used to take months and years of planning and waterfall sort of implementation. With cloud, you get so much flexibility to be able to launch and move very fast into the market. And we're talking about all those data that is being generated, very large data volumes that are generated from core business applications, from third-party applications, from customers that actually use our different services. So all this data, which cloud, you can be able to leverage this data to impute into your products and services that you offer, and also be able to build new products and services. There's a lot of different innovations that can be that can come to play based on the data they're able to analyze and the information they're able to get. And then we talk about the ability to gain supercomputing power. So with cloud services, because uh, basically to an extent your ability to scale is almost limitless. So we have lots of organizations that take advantage of this supercomputing power to be able to process calculations that you basically wouldn't be able to do if you're going to have this within your own private data center or within your office. So with this, one use case, for instance, would be blockchain. So we are trying to mine Bitcoin, for instance. It takes a lot of computing power, and the cloud allows you to have this skill without breaking the bank. So you don't have to have all this infrastructure and own it. You could use it when you have the need at that particular point in time, and then let go of these resources. So there's a lot of flexibility, scalability, resilience that comes into play when you're looking at the cloud that a lot of businesses can take advantage of. So lastly, there's always this talk around security and compliance and regulation when it comes to the cloud. Interestingly, when you look at MSMEs in particular, you find out cloud security actually comes out and shines. And the reason is very simple. For lots of large organizations, they can afford to have very large IT security teams. They can afford to invest heavily in very large infrastructure. Buy all the firewalls and DDoS and WAF and all the rest. But when it comes to SMEs have to be a lot more strategic. They need to be more efficient when it comes to the resources that they have, and that's where cloud actually comes into play. So with cloud, all of these additional security features and some that come embedded and free with cloud services can be taken advantage of. And as against having to buy this infrastructure, you only pay for whatever it is that you use at that particular point in time. So you have all the firewalls and the rest that are built into these services, and they're able to prevent and protect you from attacks, malware attacks, and all of the likes. And then there's a lot of compliance also built into the cloud services. So like I talked about, there's cloud that caters for your public cloud. There are also cloud services that are able to meet your data residency requirements. So let's say for an organization, you are mandated to keep your data on premise within the shores of the country because of data residency requirements. You can have a private cloud setup, and you're able to meet all the different compliance requirements. In Nigeria, we have a number that, for instance, financial institutions need to meet. We have ISO 27001, we have PCI DSS, and of course, NDPR, which is an offshoot of the GDPR, which has to do with data privacy requirements. And with cloud services, you're able to meet all these requirements without having to break the bank and have very large IT teams or IT security teams. And then lastly, it's simplified. Security and management is simplified. With cloud services, you get a single pane of glass view of everything that is happening within your environment, and you also even get certain features and services such as cloud advisors and cloud security posture management solutions that are able to advise you on how best to ensure that you stay within compliance, following security best practices and the likes. So basically, this is just a quick overview, just to talk about the benefits of the cloud and how it will help, lots of businesses to become more efficient and run better. So thank you very much, and that's the end of my presentation. Kelechi, go back to you, please.
All right, Ismaila, thank you so much for that one. I mean, that was quick, crisp, and also at the same time fully loaded. So right before we go into the panel discussions, just wanted to remind participants, right, that we have two chat platforms. The first is the chat platform itself, which you can use to introduce yourself and basically, announce your presence here on the webinar. And the second is the Q&A box. So later on in the presentation or later on in the webinar, we're going to be taking questions and passing them on to our panelists, to give us appropriate answers for. So you can use that icon for Q&A to take in and put in your questions as they come in. And we have a back-end support team that will also help fine-tune and bring those questions forward later on when we're going to be addressing them. So thanks again, Ismaila, and that was a good one. I mean, one big takeaway from that presentation for me was the mind-boggling statistic, that by Gartner, that by 2026, it's expected that about 75% of organizations will have adopted cloud, basically predicated their infrastructure on cloud. So right now we're going to be going into the panel discussion, and that should take us through the next 25 minutes. For that panel discussion, I'm going to be calling on two panelists to join Ismaila. First of whom is Laurel Onumono. Laurel is currently an AGM and the head of business for cyber cloud platforms. She's an innovative and disruptive tech leader with about 15 years of experience in digital transformation technology, cloud computing, telecoms, strategic business development, and basically an ISO certification champion in her current establishment. She holds a bachelor's in computer science from the famous University of Ibadan, also has an executive MBA from Warwick Business School, and an alumni of the Lagos Business School. That's the SMP 80. Laurel is also a certified lead implementer for the ISO 27001 and 22301, and she'll be joining our league of panelists here this morning. Also on the panel of discussion is going to be Stephen Okoye. Stephen is the Chief Technology Officer at Inc. Digital, Nigeria. Inc. formerly known as Vodacom, by the way. So with over 14 years of industry experience spanning business solutions, consulting, technology, telecommunications, systems integration, and product development, Steve has showcased his expertise in various capacities. So prior to joining Inc. Digital, Steve actually held a position as head of solutions and managed networks in Dimension Data. And there he provided customers with strategic solutions that reduced both their CapEx and OpEx as they were seeking to drive revenues and increase profitability. Stephen holds a bachelor's in electronic engineering from the famous University of Nigeria in Nsukka. And he additionally obtained a diploma in internet service provider design and backbone routing from the renowned United States Telecommunications Training Institute in Washington, DC. So, I mean, along the way, Steve realized that you can't truly be C-level without a business side to things. So he's also completed an MBA from another esteemed university, the University of South Wales in the United Kingdom. So Steve, Laurel, and again, Ismaila, you're welcome to the panel discussion points. So let's start this off by, Laurel, can you hear me? Microphone check, please.
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Kelly.
All right, pleasure having you. So, good. The first question will be, looking at this data that we just heard from Ismail about the fact that 75% of organizations are expected to adopt cloud, in some form or shape in their businesses. And also when we look at the fact that in Nigeria today, like I mentioned earlier, right, we have 96% of businesses here in Nigeria are actually SMEs, that's the micro, small, and medium scale businesses. What would you say are the reasons, that MSMEs are not actually adopting cloud as fast, right, and as expansively as we would expect? Why would you say that SMEs are not considering this as a cost-effective option and, basically to drive their business efficiencies at this point in time?
Okay, thank you, Kelechiku. Thank you once again for the audience. Pleasure to meet everyone. In respect, I listened carefully to Ismaili, and thank you, Ismaili. That was a very rich presentation you made there. As we all know today that the SME in Nigeria, we have over 41 million SMEs in Nigeria today, according to SMEDA. And this cuts across the major key business sectors. I would like to start by letting everyone know that the mid SMEs that we know today, they are segmented between the micro, small, and mid SMEs. So if we're talking about cloud adoption, we probably will have to segment and then do a deep dive, because not all the SMEs are really buoyant enough, are digitized to adopt cloud. And I would also like to let everybody know that I know I have this information from Development Bank of Nigeria, that in the last 5 years as well, they have also provided 631 billion to the SMEs through wholesale funds to financial institutions like commercial banks and the microfinance banks, lending to them. In effect, I know this funding in this context is not a constraint, and there is business opportunity for cloud service adoption to drive agility, business continuity, accelerate innovation, and also optimize costs for them. So beyond segmentation, I will be speaking more on the mid SMEs, because their employees size is between 50 to 250 employees. And if you'll agree with me, not all the SMEs in the business sectors, for instance, are digitized, and at the same time as well to require cloud adoption, whether it's cloud computing or cloud services. So let's just go quickly to the mid SMEs. Each of them have their own peculiarities. If I'll be speaking to the to the micro SMEs, the artisans we have today, they generate quite a lot of revenue. But their business, does it require cloud? I'll probably be speaking to the software developer, the app developer, who must have developed an application for them that they're using for maybe an inventory, or maybe that they're using to collect payments from their customers. The small SMEs as well, too, that ranges between 10 to maybe 50 employees. Their nature of the business, is it also digitized? Does it also require cloud adoption? The mid SMEs that are probably 50 to 250 employees, they are the key ones. Look at the fintechs today. Look at those in agriculture. Look at those in the finance, insurance, those in the banking. They are definitely the people that I will be speaking to today. So for the reason why cloud adoption is still low, irrespective of the number of SMEs that we have, which is over 41 million, their representation in the total number in Nigeria, about 97 total businesses in Nigeria actually conducted by them. And then 67% of that 97 total businesses are youth-owned businesses. Youth-owned businesses. So there's quite a whole lot of business opportunity in the cloud adoption environment. So diving quickly into the reason why the adoption is still very low: lack of awareness. The mid SMEs, technical people, and probably decision makers, there's a whole lot of lack of awareness, even when setting up the business, to say, for applications to thrive and for us to drive agility and also deliver, accelerate innovations. These are the key areas that we need to be, digital transformation that we need to quickly look into. So many SMEs in Nigeria today, they are not aware of the benefits of cloud computing, or they may also have misconception about the technology. There's also lack of expertise. SMEs today, or the mid SMEs, may not have the technical expertise in-house to manage and maintain cloud-based systems. Capital flight is also an issue. Cost. Cloud computing, some would say, can be relatively expensive investment for the SMEs, especially for those with limited resources. Security concerns. Some of the SMEs may be concerned about security of their data in the cloud. Lack of government support. The Nigerian government today has not also taken major steps to also promote cloud adoption among SMEs. So cloud providers can promote this cloud adoption among SMEs by addressing some of the key factors that I'll be emphasizing on today. And what are those key key challenges? Those key challenges are by raising awareness. The cloud providers, whether it's cloud computing, and also my fellow customers and partner like Rack Center, we have to jointly create awareness to let the people know, especially those in the SMEs, the benefits of cloud computing through a lot of symposiums, seminars, workshops, educational initiatives, providing training to SMEs to how to manage and maintain cloud-based related systems. Also offering affordable pricing, which is always very key. Pricing is key for them. If it's not affordable, they think it's off the roof. So in terms of the pricing, I would recommend strongly subscription-based and spreading across maybe between a year or two for them to be able to penetrate and adopt what we're talking about today. So with the cloud providers, we need to provide training to SMEs on how to manage and maintain cloud-based systems, and at the same time also provide affordable pricing plans, okay, and tailored to their specific needs. In addressing the security concerns, for me, cloud providers, we can also address security concerns by providing transparent security policies and procedures, and by using industry-leading security measures as well too. Working with the government, we can also promote cloud adoption through policies and initiatives, incentives. By taking these steps, I strongly believe that the cloud providers, we can make cloud adopting more accessible and affordable for the mid SMEs in Nigeria. This will help to boost the digital economy and also create jobs. Finally, highlighting the scalability and flexibility of cloud computing to the SME leaders, the influencers, that's the head of the ITs, the C-level people, to understand the benefits of scalability. They can start small, okay, with their workload, moving their workloads to the cloud, and gradually they scale up. SMEs can also benefit from cloud computing ability to scale up and down as needed and to adapt changing business requirements. So emphasizing the security of cloud computing, we can provide SMEs with peace of mind by offering robust security measures and data protection, making it easy for SMEs to get started. So finally, I would like to say for the SMEs in Nigeria today, they're actually segmented in different cadres. We can't generalize all of them to need cloud, to adopt cloud, okay? But we need to make sure that whatever we're doing, we also ensure that government supports us by bringing up policies, especially data sovereignty policy through NIDA, so that our economy can also improve and then people can adopt it.
Wow, thank you so much, Laurel. Thank you. I mean, so when I said earlier on that we had an Amazon in the room, literally speaking, right? I mean, you've seen that firsthand. So Stephen, it's almost impossible, right, to talk about cloud and divest it from internet access. You know, both go hand in hand. So even though as an economy, as a country, we are witnessing steady increases in the internet penetration in Nigeria. I mean, by the last figures, we're at about 55%, you know, up by about another 9.7% from 2021. But the cost and the service performance, you know, of broadband and fixed internet connectivity particularly is still a challenge, especially for SMEs, right? And for those particularly outside key urban areas like Lagos, key urban cities, sorry, like Lagos, Port Harcourt, Abuja. So it's still a challenge. So how can cloud providers assist businesses in overcoming these limitations? And how can they also help in optimizing their cloud experience such that they can enjoy some of the beautiful things that Ismaila had mentioned earlier?
Okay, thank you so much. And good morning, everyone. So I'd like to tell a little story, just a little story. And we can, use this as an analogy to describe what is going on today in the cloud ecosystem. So early 2000s, I came to Lagos, early 2000s, and I stay in the Lekki part of Lagos, so on the island. At that time, there was just one major shopping complex, the Palms, where you have ShopRite, So for some people like us, I wasn't staying in the main part of Lagos, the main part of the island, which is VI and maybe the Lekki phase ones and all that. So I stay further down. And one of the things I noted over the years is that between that time and 2010, 2015, other shopping malls started coming up. And one of the things that happened was some property companies began to buy very big spaces, set up very big shopping malls, and the likes of ShopRite, ShopRite, Mr. Price, and some of these other franchises began to move in. So in Jakonde, where you have Circle Mall now today, which is about 10, 15 kilometers from the Palms in Lekki, you have another ShopRite that is there. So before then, earlier on in those 2000s, people like us that want to buy, there is this bread we usually buy in ShopRite. I don't know, for some of us that live in Lagos, So we go there to queue to buy that bread. So I come all the way from where I stay on the second part of Lekki, to buy that bread. That is quite some distance, And one of the things that these property guys and ShopRite and the rest did by bringing that mall closer to where I live was that they reduced they gave me more accessibility. So in the ecosystem, I like to put everything together. It is an ecosystem, not just the cloud providers, but also the colo providers, not just the colo providers, but also the connectivity players. So the whole essence is a customer wants to access a content and a customer wants to consume a service. The closer the service is to the customer, the ease of use, in technical terms, you talk about latency and, for example, ease of access to content, it is because of this same analogy and because of this same model that saw the likes of IXPN come up, and saw the likes of Google putting a catch in Nigeria, saw the likes of Microsoft also putting a catch in Nigeria, So the idea is for those contents to be closer to the users that need them. So, and that is what Rack Center and some of the other colo providers have done in the recent years, essentially giving the users the opportunity to access some of the contents that they usually go to UK or to US to access. So what you see is a gradual penetration. Yes, it has happened for the major cities, like you mentioned, Lagos, in some ways, Port Harcourt and Abuja. But one of the challenges we see is that it is a gradual process. It is a process that will take some time. Essentially, I believe it will get to a point where if the economics are right, you start seeing a Rack Center in, for example, in Kano, a Rack Center is in, for example, Enugu, and so many other places, which will now give the cloud ecosystem, the cloud providers, the opportunity to also put a footprint, in those places. And once they put that footprint in those places, the users like myself that usually would travel all the way to buy bread in the Palms in Lekki, we now know that there is a cloud service very close to me. I don't have to travel that distance. I will just have to plug into the one that is nearest to where I am. So I mean, it is a gradual process, It is a challenge in Nigeria because of the challenges we face with infrastructure and connectivity, and policies and all that. But I believe it is something that is gradual. Lagos has been successful. Today in Lagos, we have, the likes of Rack Center. We have more other data centers, But I believe with time, as the broadband penetration matures and as the infrastructure matures, and we begin to see better service, cloud providers and data centers will see more business opportunities to, move the services closer to the users that, require them. With that, the efficiency will improve. Just like we have seen, the big players, the big guys, trying to put in some availability zones here in Nigeria. So that will happen with time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephen. I mean, that analogy was super. I was listening in and seeing where you were going to land with this, and it just hit the spot, if you ask me. Ismaila, I have one for you, right? And it has to do with, with one fear. You tell us if the fear is valid. So it's a fear by SMEs and probably businesses generally, right? And it has to do with when they adopt the cloud solution, which we're all preaching, there's a fear of vendor locking, you lock in with one provider. So how can cloud providers ensure that SMEs have the flexibility to be able to migrate, their workloads between different cloud platforms, depending on what it is they are looking to achieve, right? And depending on each service provider's value proposition. How do you think we can start to allay those concerns?
And yeah, thank you very much, Kenichiko. So the truth of the matter is that in the past, in the early days of the cloud services offering, it was a very valid concern that organizations had about vendor locking. So there's a lot of fear around hosting your applications or your services with a cloud provider, and then you find out that you want to move to another cloud provider, or you want to connect between cloud services, and then you're stuck. So there's been a lot of discussions and a lot of changes that are happening around that. So I can speak for Oracle, for instance. There's a lot we're trying to do, particularly from our own side, to take advantage of the needs that customers have. So we've now more or less adopted a multi-cloud strategy. We have alliances with a number of other cloud service providers. We have an alliance with Azure. I think there's one also too with AWS and the likes. And the idea behind this is to make sure that interconnectivity between the cloud services is seamless, it's effective. And for Oracle, for instance, we try to, because usually where the cost comes in, for migration, is usually egress. That means when you're moving traffic out of the cloud service, maybe to another cloud service, you're trying to connect in between. For us, what we've tried to do is, we have at this point some amount of data that we actually offer for free. So we offer 10 terabytes of data monthly for you to migrate between our cloud service and any other cloud service that you're moving this traffic out to. So that's the egress traffic. And if you agree with me, SMEs from the concepts of what L'Oreal talked about right now are not exactly very big. So they're starting small. So in that kind of regard, they shouldn't really have any issues moving traffic in and out, moving data in and out from our cloud service to other cloud services. And it's a conversation that is ongoing. There's also a lot of drive to leverage open standards. So on a number of solutions that we're offering, they're based on open standards. So regardless of whether you're running it on Oracle Cloud, or you decide to say, okay, I want to move this workload to another cloud service, you are not going to move it and then you now start saying, oh, you're having issues with the platform, you're having issues with this particular server working or being able to set up. So those are some of the things that we're putting in place. There's a lot more ideas around it, and other cloud service providers are coming to the table to understand that for cloud to really be be attractive to everyone and be useful to everyone, it needs to have be that sort of open standard, sort of like what you have with GSM services, where you can actually right now you can port your number, you can use different phones. There should be that level of flexibility and freedom when it comes to cloud for you to be able to take advantage of different environments and different capabilities, which different cloud providers have certain strengths. If you look at that, so it's happening. It's going to get better over time, but I don't really think it should be a fear that organizations should have. You can bring your data. There's nothing saying that you cannot move your data from one cloud service to another, and the cost of moving that is reducing day after day.
Thank you very much, Ismail. Very insightful, if you ask me. So we're running quite short on time, so I will put two very quick questions in, and I will appreciate it if the respondents, could be also brief with their responses. Stephen, let me quickly come back to you. Right, business continuity and disaster recovery are really critical when businesses are planning. So how can cloud providers assist businesses, particularly the MSMEs, right, in implementing effective disaster recovery strategies when they talk about safeguarding their data? What will be your suggestion?
Okay, I think Ismail has touched a little bit on that, and that is multi-cloud strategy. So for cloud providers, one of the things that we also have to take into account is being able to implement across platforms, So I know Ismail mentioned something about them having partnership with Oracle, having partnership with Azure, AWS. So I mean, if as a cloud provider, there are several use cases you will see interacting with customers. One of them is you meet a customer that says, look, I have part of my workload on this cloud platform. I'd like to do disaster recovery, or I'd like to have a multi-cloud strategy where some of my workload is here and I can put some of my workload with you. You should be able to provide that service, provide that solution. In some ways, it comes as part of consulting for some businesses. But for us that are cloud providers, we should be able to move workload from our platform to other platforms and from other platforms to us. So that way, to the user, they have some level of disaster recovery. So that's one bucket. Another bucket is having what we call availability zones. Yes, the big players here are in Africa today, and some of them here are in Nigeria. But one of the things that we are yet to see is having availability zones. Let me give an example. I have a financial institution that's asking, okay, I'd like you guys to host some of our services or host our services. And but what you have is just one cloud platform. Where do I host my disaster recovery? So, so there is that question, and cloud providers should be able to, get to that point where you don't just have a single point where you keep your data, but have multiple availability zones. I mean, the big players have done quite a lot in Europe, in US. So in Africa, we are beginning to see some of them put the first node in Africa, and some of them put the first node in Nigeria. But where we are going is to get to a point where they will have multiple nodes, within the country, so that when you talk about data sovereignty and some of the other policies that government has brought into place, a business can confidently say, okay, I'm hosting my service with Oracle, and I'm fine with the primary and this disaster recovery service that they're giving to me. I'm fine with the business continuity plan that they put in place, although it is a single platform, is a single provider, but they have multiple sites. So that's where things like geographical redundancy and some of these other things now come into play. So that's the second bucket. So the first bucket being, yes, I can interoperate with other service cloud providers and have workload on mine and another workload on the second provider and interconnect. But the other bucket is I can still have the same service or the services on my own platform with different geographical redundancy in place. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I mean, very expounding there. So the last question for this part of the webinar. I'm addressing that back at you, Laurel, and I'll need you to wear your sales cap, for a few minutes, because when we talk about cloud adoption, we find that it requires a cultural shift, even within the organization that we're trying to pitch into. Especially when that organization is looking to migrate from either an on-prem scenario or where they previously outsourced their infrastructure to a data center. Right? So, but going to the cloud, you find one of the biggest concerns with C-level executives or business ownership. What would you say is that objection you hear from C-level executives, business ownership, when you're trying to pitch cloud solutions to them? And how do you typically handle this objection when they do come?
Okay, thank you, Kelechi. That's always it's becoming a clarion call, or will I say a ringtone, every time you go for some high-level C-level presentations. You find the C-level telling you a lot of things around what you just said. But to start with, I know cloud adoption does require cultural shift within organizations, especially for those that are looking to migrate from either on-premises or outsourced data centers operations. This is because cloud computing introduces, a number of changes to the way that the businesses operate, including a shift from ownership to access. I believe with cloud computing, business no longer need to own or maintain their own infrastructure. Instead, they can access cloud-based services on demand. This can save businesses money and the C-level money and time, but it can also be a challenge for businesses and organizations in these SMEs that are used to being in control of their own infrastructure. I know a shift from silos to integrated systems, so cloud computing can help business migrate their systems and processes. This can improve efficiency and collaboration, but it can also be a challenge for business that are used to working in silos. A shift from reactive to proactive management. I strongly believe that computing can help businesses to be more proactive in managing their IT environment. This can help to improve security and compliance, but it can also be a challenge for businesses that are also being used to being reactive to problems. So the biggest concern of the C-levels executive is it's always, or most times, the security of the cloud. They may be concerned that their data will be lost or compromised, or that they will be lost. True. So in my experience, the best way to handle this objection is to address the specific concerns of the C-levels. This includes providing them with information about security measures that are in place to protect their data. For instance, in cyber cloud, we have our platform, which is built on NXS. Our platform is also very flexible to allow you bring in any other firewall. We also have partnerships with all the firewall service providers from Red Hat, Sophos, Fortinet, Palo Alto, anyone. If you want to bring additional 2 redundancies just to beef up your security, our platform is very, compatible to accommodate that. So this is to allay their fears in terms of, loss of their data and to increase, security from attacks. Okay, so I'm going to round up by saying some of the specific tips for handling this objection is by one, I already mentioned that understanding the C-level concerns, what they specifically worry about. Once you understand their concerns, you can address them directly. Provide them with information about security measures that can put their data, that are in place to protect their data. This includes information about the cloud provider security policies and procedures, as well as physical and technical security measures that are in place, and emphasizing the benefits of cloud computing, okay? It offers a number of benefits such as cost savings, scalability, flexibility, speed to market, which is very key, especially for the startup. Fintechs want to respond to the market. They don't want to wait to get servers in and other infrastructures. So I strongly believe that by following these tips, we can help to address the concerns of these C-level executives and give them the comfort they need to move forward with cloud adoption.
Thank you, Laurel. Thank you so much. I mean, very expounding. Thank you, Laurel. Thank you, Stephen and Ismaila. Thank you so much. It's been quite a revealing session. So at this point in time, we're going to be moving over to the next presentation, and that will be taken, because it's time now to balance it up by bringing an actual business user, to talk to us about how they've leveraged cloud solutions to be able to unlock the efficiencies within their business segment. So to take us through that presentation, I'm calling on Okechukwu Chime. Okechukwu is a seasoned technical infrastructure and e-payment professional with over a dozen years of cogent industry experience, having driven landmark projects and operations across the public and private sectors and across telecoms and banking verticals. Okechukwu has handled projects that border around the Google 100 gig, for instance, and then the zone switch pilot projects, just to name two out of many. He's currently serving as the Vice President for Infrastructure with Core Technologies. Core Technologies was formerly known as AppZone, and he's charged with the oversight function of cloud and on-prem infrastructure. He also oversees the enterprise information systems, business continuity strategy, and service reliability, among other functions that he handles for Core Technologies. He holds a bachelor's in electrical and electronics engineering and has several industry certifications to his name as well. So, Okechukwu, you're very welcome. And please, if you could go straight into your presentation, and we will touch base right after that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kelechi. Good day, everyone. Yeah. Is my presence visible?
Yes, we can see and hear you. You can right. Put it on presentation mode and
yeah, that's what I'm doing now. Give me a sec. Okay, yeah, that's all right. So I'll jump right in it. Now here, I'll be speaking to the cloud adoption, embracing it and all that, how it touches us as a business, and we case in point, referring to the SME space, not just those in our own vertical, right? So this is a summary of my table of contents, and Kelechi has done a good job of introducing me, so there's no need for that. But a little bit about Core, like you said, AppZone was the name that's more familiar, that's been around, but the need to our customers better and evolve, we had to divest into two different companies currently. So there's Core on Zoom. Core takes care of.
Sorry, Okechukwu, hello. Your audio. I don't know. There's an echo, a deep echo. I don't know if it's.
Yeah. Okay. How about now?
Slightly better. So, but I think you might just need to move closer to the microphone.
Yeah. That's a switch audio last minute.
Fantastic. Right. Please go ahead.
All right. So we focus on core banking, card issuance, loan automation, and merchant services. So that's it. So we're in a couple of countries in Africa. So that's Gambia, Kenya, and this is after capturing the Nigerian market. Still expanding. Hopefully next time we're here, that whole screen will be big. So the scenario that will drive home more to a lot of people without having to go, just something more everyday-ish. Years back, everybody was fine with working on Excel sheets to, for regular word processing and transactions, whatever. analytics of what we need to do. You get, but in this day and age, now if you have a scenario where you have 100 staff, right, that could get very hairy. Now, in an offline mode, you'd have, let's say, the spreadsheet is 10 MB and you have 100 staff. Easily, your storage requirement will be 2 gig. And why I say 2 gig is you'd have to have it on the local systems. You now have to have it centrally at whoever is collating. You get processing power, same way, 200x, and then collating those things will take days to weeks. You get. But currently, in an online mode where you're sharing the spreadsheets centrally, that single sheet could be accessed by that number of staff, and processing power would just be minimal. You get. I said 1 to 5x because accessing it, there'll be back-end computing, and then collation will be real time. Everybody does, and it's reflected right on the bottom. You get. So that's just a very low level example of what. So moving that to an enterprise example, the banks all have their DCs, because data sovereignty and how we've been operating in the past, all of them replicating power cooling, expertise, connectivity, the same cost, same effort, same expertise, across. You get. So, and with that, those guys they're not built for that. That's what their focus. Their focus is to deliver financial services. So, but they're now having to be service providers of some sort. You get, because that's what you have. During the cash payments, cashless policy some months back, everybody felt the heat. Services were down, and you could have 2, 3, commercial bank apps, and none of them will be moving. Transactions all failed at the same time. So this is because all those things were on-prem, and they were not built for that level of scale and rapid expansion expertise and all that. So that came to fore. That's just a slight example of, well, let's not say slight, an example of how, the different from on-prem. And you had guys like OPay and the fintechs, coming through, having very reliable services because those guys are on the cloud. You get. So in our own case, as an example, the banks, the MFBs, in the past were excluded from using core banking, like almost totally. Like they were stopped with using Excel sheets and notebooks to record transactions, and even some of them ERPs, that are not core banking software that just do the basics of almost like data entry, a little above that. But because of the huge cost, these things run 2 million, and the MFBs, because of their small scale and OFIs, they can't afford those things. Like even their capitalization is nowhere near the cost of some of the core banking software you had. So, but Bank One to the rescue, right? About 13 years back. So currently we have about 500 MFBs, OFIs across the continent. And that number signifies well over half of the MFB counts in the country. And with that cloud delivered core banking software, you have banks being able to provide those services cost effectively at a minimal fraction of the cost. Security, everything, same amount of services you can find on the enterprise high-flying core banking software. So you could only do that and deliver it to them for them to afford it because we were able to leverage the cloud. If you had to do that compare for them, that story would have been different. And the statistics are there. Most of the customers are able to survive bank hatchets, CBN, recapitalization, and then continue ramping and growing their businesses. So another example we can put forward is, because one thing not everybody can recognize that card issuance. Now, if you have a GT Bank or a Zenith Bank account, well, even without having that, we all know that in the past, some years back, card issuance was minimal a week. Right now, you can get it in 7 minutes. And just to put in context, that's 10,000 times the difference from 7 days to 7 minutes. Just, that's the only way that could have been done was leveraging cloud services, to deliver it at that cost-effective and secure manner. Because even in instances where you don't get it in 7 minutes, that could be processing issues. You have, those in branches, because the most prevalent case we have is with GT Bank. What we call a card vending machines. You just walk up there with your fingerprints and your, bank account number. You get that thing in less than in record time. So, like I said, that would only be possible leveraging cloud services, which we use to deploy those services. Yeah. So advantages of cloud. I mean, I'll stick to the middle and go around. Speed. Like, same thing, same way it took like a week to get your card. In the past, when you want to deploy services, having to go buy servers, having to take delivery integrations. We're talking about months to years of trying to even set up an application before users even test and to know whether it's viable. Like, organizations have gone on that in attempt to spin up services on-prem on their own. But today, within minutes, you can spin up virtual machines and run in days, get your applications up, do your testing, and before it starts ramping up. Scalability, you don't have to wait weeks to months on end to get your services up on what have you. Same cost. Now, cost in terms of the CapEx. You can imagine just roughly, case in point, recently, there was a service that, we're considering that the cost came to well over 100 M, right? In having to get those things, get the infrastructure. But looking at the cloud option, which was even a private cloud option, it was going to cost like less than 10, and of course, OpEx can't, and the speed of getting that with the recent chip issues that we've had, which I don't know how many people have experienced that. Ordering stuff has been like a nightmare. Like OEMs have had, it's been an uphill task for them, getting the manufacturing out. So the regular shipping issues have been, amplified. But when you want to do those things on the same service on the cloud, talking about days, minutes to weeks, depending on what you're trying to do. Security. Now, some of my colleagues have talked about it, but just from my own perspective, the same security, you're only as secure as, your process for people, right? So same technology you have here, but the whole perception of, this is on-prem, this is in my environment. If you don't set those things up properly, even considering internal risks, you're that level of exposure. And taking it a step further, you can't be more secure on an infrastructure than the OEM itself. So when you're on the cloud, on the public cloud, or even the private clouds hybrid, you are real-time secure. The OEMs provide these things up to date once they come up. Like, you don't have to wait to, or a weekend patch update to get your latest security, but those happen real-time on the hour, by the second you get. You also have the ability to integrate with other enterprises, service provider partners, like within hours, days, as against what we had in the past. You get. So, considerations in your cloud journey. You need to consider your architecture and migration strategy. Those take considerable planning and looking kind stakeholders along, view your solution end to end to understand from the infrastructure costs, service and application point of view. So it requires, and because that takes into talking about new skill sets, right? So you need to, those skill sets, you need to have that level of expertise, whether you're going to source that or developing in-house. That's a consideration that is required, to meet delivering your services and your customers on the cloud. Yeah, so vendor locking and multi-platform strategies, right? So again, some of the panelists have talked about it. These days, the cloud, the big players are becoming a little more open. Yeah, but a little insight on that. I'll get there. It's something I'm going to touch on later in my presentation. There are layers of, there are different cloud service models, right? But the deeper you go into the service models, the more locked in you are. So those are concerned, but there's a catch-22 because you're going in deeper, not just for the heck of it, but just because you have to leverage certain services on the cloud, right? So that's building that skill set and insight and having the right consultations enable you design your applications in a form and deploy them in a way that you're not locked in. Like if you stay on the highest level, you're good. But if you go deeper, it's just like saying you're on Windows, you're on O365, but you want to migrate away from it. Like that's the deeper you are, the more locked you are. That you can imagine that's a nightmare having to move away. But if you're just deployed VMs and stuff, which are pretty much standard infra all along across board, those are really seamless and those integrations are pretty much most of the partners are collaborating really well on that now. So you have to also consider operations, right? So because it's easy to fall into the trap of you've run away from the capex. So, but you can scale up resources on the fly on the cloud. But the operational expenditure needs to be considered. You need to take into the consideration like things like the tenure of your resources, the life cycle, and then monitoring those costs. Have clarity on what each of them costs, from licensing to infrastructure to cost to processing, because most of I believe they have what they call reserved instances, and they have cost management and FinOps, FinOps tools that enable you manage that cost so that you stay within budget and you don't now, you don't become penny wise pound foolish. You run away from capex and you're spending something on opex, which is even recurrent, right? So that can get really quick. Regulatory compliance, and security, they're kind of interwoven. So GDPR concerns, data sovereignty, depending on what your requirement is and where the government of the country you're serving, those need to be taken account so that you don't get hatchet. Like some people don't mind, others insist that you have to deploy that all data must be within the country, within the shores of the country. Some say your DR can be. There's a mix and match of everything across board. So security, of course, security can't be overstated. And I've touched on that before. Panelists have, and doing that on the cloud. All the cloud vendors, they have the integrations with the big four guys like Fortinet, Palo Alto, Checkpoint, Cisco, and Co. Those gotten up marketplace, you really don't even have to engage the service providers. At the click of a button, you have those things. As long as you just know what you're doing and what your end goal is. Right?
Okay, Chico, we need to be rounding up. We need to be rounding up. Yeah.
Okay. Well, public cloud options, they're there. They listed them in the past. Azure, GCP. You also have Rack Center, which are touch on private cloud. So I'll go to the service models, right? So you have the cloud models. This is the old school on-premise. Then the IaaS, infrastructure as a service, where the cloud partner handles your virtualization, VM, basically the hardware, and everything is all the rest is your responsibility, which is same way. Then you have the PaaS, which is instances like Azure functions, managed services, and those are more technical development kind of things where you have to make those inputs. So you hand over your OS and middleware level to the infrastructure to the OEM, and then you take care of data and applications. SaaS easily, O365, Salesforce, everything that's like end-to-end by the provider, you just log in and use. You don't have to bother about any of the underlay. So so that's what I have for everyone today. So we just been able to touch on use cases for the cloud, examples, how it benefited us as an organization, how it could benefit others. And
Thank you so much, Okechukwu. Thank you so much. So you brought a different perspective on things, speaking from a business user perspective.
Yeah.
So we're going to be right now going into another panel discussion. But before that, I just want to highlight that we're getting loads of feedback via the Q&A box. And I can see that our panelists have also been very active in responding to your questions as they come in. So please, for those of you who still have questions and have not put it in, you can use the Q&A box, and we will take on a couple of those questions right here. But most of them I see are actually being responded to. as we proceed with the webinar. So right now, we are going to be going into the second panel discussion. And that's, so there's no way we can talk about cloud route without mentioning security and compliance. And so that's what this next we're going to be doing for the next few minutes of this webinar. So in this section, we're going to be discussing how cloud adoption meets with relevant laws, regulations, industry standards, as well as the responsibilities of both the cloud provider as well as the business owner to ensure that that data security is not compromised. So joining Okechukwu on this session will be Mr. Chukwuma Okpaka. Chuks, as he's widely known, I mean, so that's why I hesitated, before saying Chukwuma. He's widely known as Chuks. He's the Azure go-to-market leader for Microsoft, Microsoft Africa subsidiary. And in his role, he's been a strategic subject leader for the Azure business here in Africa. He's responsible for planning and execution of the Azure ecosystem go-to-market strategy in the region. So, but just before joining Microsoft, EMEA multi-country cluster, Chuks was actually in the classroom. I mean, he spent quite a couple of years in the classroom lecturing courses on computer architecture, operating systems, data structures and algorithms, artificial intelligence. I mean, Chuks is a teacher, right? And his heart and energy just exudes inspiration when it comes to anything technology. Chuks has an expansive 20-year career. He had an expansive 20-year career with HP Nigeria, and his last position in HP was actually country managing director, who was responsible for Anglo West Africa region. Chuks holds a bachelor's in mathematics and computer science from University of Port Harcourt, and he's back 2 master's degrees. I mean, one in information systems and management from University of Liverpool, and then another MPhil, that's master's in philosophy in management from the Walden University in USA. So his current daily job at Microsoft basically entails helping organizations to adopt information technology as a business enabler and supporting such businesses on their digital journeys. So Chuks, you're welcome. If you can hear me, say fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay, so going into the discussion now, I'll start with you, Chuks, because and at the same time I brought out my pen and jotter to take notes. So when we talk about sharing of resources in the cloud environment, it raises a concern about data isolation, as a solution, as a security strategy. So how would you say cloud providers should address this issue and prevent unauthorized access or data leakage, between different tenants in those cloud platforms?
Thank you so much, Mr. Nsofo, and good morning, everyone. It's really a big pleasure to be in this panel and to anchor this segment of the conversation. It's been quite insightful, I must say. So really a big learning curve also for me, listening to the speakers and the panelists. Talking about the challenge of, hosting applications, your business on the cloud, and then the fear of sharing resources. Most cloud providers, of course, they have multiple tenants hosted in their environment. And they can be hundreds and thousands, depending on how the size of the business they run. And then the fear of, I'm having multiple tenants, supporting multiple tenants. Are there data breaches? Are there information being passed from one tenant to the other? And I think to a great extent, the cloud environment is a well thought out environment. There should be no fears. Of course, when we talk about security and breaches, I think everybody should be both responsible and accountable for it. Listening to there is a slide he showed, Chime, that showed the on-prem environment, the IaaS environment, the PaaS environment, and the SaaS environment. So when we say a client is hosting their business on the cloud, they need to also know what exactly is the model they adopted. Is it PaaS? Is it IaaS? Is it IaaS? Because the security posture also that and responsibility will depend on the exact type of cloud model they have adopted. So when they are hosting and this IaaS, the level of security and ownership of different layers of security is actually maybe shared. And I think to a great extent, what I really want to insist here is that cloud providers have several measures they have put in place to prevent unauthorized access, okay, of or data leakage in their environment. This is their business, okay? And there's what is called maybe cross-tenant private endpoint connection. This is one of the approaches that ensures that there are limits to what tenants can do beyond their own environment, okay? So that's the policy. Another one is also what is called isolation control. So isolation control helps to maintain tenant isolation completely in a multi-tenant environment, meaning that you're limited to the space given to you. So your activities are limited within that point. There is also what is called data exfiltration protection access control. So these are different protocols, different practices, different processes that cloud service providers intentionally put in place to ensure that, okay, look at it also from maybe if you have a, I'm referring to what Mr. Oke that gave an analysis of coming from Lekki, down Lekki, coming to, the Palms to come and buy bread also. But when the service got closer to him, he was able to access services a lot more closer. So look at, in the security space, we're talking about hosting multiple businesses by CSPs. It's like it's someone who have built mansion, okay? And then you're going to host different people, businesses in that mansion. That's physical structure. So for every single person, there is a key. They need to lock their house that they have paid for, or what they have rented from you. So if I take the key given to me to my own apartment, I'm not going to open the apartment next to me with that same key, because it's my key. That key can only open the apartment given to me. Of course, this is where the responsibility and onus is on the service provider. They know they have the overall responsibility in the environment. Based on experience, I've had issues where there are maybe breaches, and we begin to ask, okay, what happened that there was consumption that can be accounted for? The customer or the guy who owns the tenant is saying, no, we didn't do this consumption. So we go to the service provider. What happened within the service provider? Okay, and we realize that when there are those type of consumption, to a great extent, it's actually like the rat in the house that actually someone within the actual tenancy. So the challenge of data breaches is very limited, because this is a business model that is well thought out from the beginning to ensure that a tenant remained within the confine of his tenancy. And whether we have 1 million tenants in the same CSP environment, every single one of them have the key to their own space. The resources within their space remain within that space. Protocols and services and policies have been put in place to ensure that there are no breaches, and there are no cross tenants, cross-pollination from one tenant to the other.
All right,
so I
think
I leave it at that point.
Thank you so much. So, yeah. I mean, I love the analogies, right? And it's just so easy for any one of our participants to just identify with, the subject matter, right? And so I have a follow-up question, and that's because, in your analogy, you're using, so where does where does data encryption actually come in here? And how do cloud providers, like Microsoft, use that to safeguard data, right? And what are the practices and standards that you will expect, that SMEs should expect from, from cloud providers in keeping their data safe?
Thank you so much. I think, again, the providers, they use different encryption methods, okay, to mitigate risk related to unauthorized data access. So we talk about data that is in a stable state, data in transit, and so on and so. So when the data is in a stable environment, is it protected? Is it encrypted? If it's in transit, is it encrypted? Is it also protected as it's moving from one environment to the other? So organizations that don't enforce data encryption are actually exposing their data and their confidentiality. So it becomes a matter of challenge for them. So every reputable cloud service provider offers basic security, including encryption, which I think is very paramount. Okay, cloud users should implement measures to ensure data security. I know that, for instance, within the Microsoft environment, there is what we call the key vault. The key vault is where every key, code, important information are encrypted and kept, so that whenever they are being used, they are encrypted, and nobody will be able to decrypt, or nobody will be able to have access to those encrypted information. Okay, so key vault, for instance, part of the Azure environment, but in all the different providers, they provide different layers of encryption, which maintains control of the different keys that enables them access to vital information. Okay, so data is very important, and it's all just to say that as people have access to this data, they are sure that by pulling those data, encryption principles, encryption management, key management are put in place, so that there is no people having access to information when they're in transit or wherever the information. A reliable key management system, okay, sometimes they call it KMS, this is a key management system, which is a big part of the encryption technology, helps to meet business needs and ensure that there is compliance, ensure there is data control, ensure there is all the requirements that helps to provide us overall security that the organization requires. So it is the job of the cloud service provider to ensure that encryption technology is put in place. And there are many ways this can be done.
Thank you so much once again, Chooks. Thank you so much. So I only have time to slip in one more question, and let me come to you, okay? And this also has to do with the cultural shift that we mentioned during the first half of this webinar series. You see, many organizations, rightly or wrongly, right, they make the mistake of assuming that once data is in the cloud, or once data is sent to the cloud, that all the security responsibility shifts entirely from that business to the cloud service provider, right? You touched on this a bit in your presentation, but I want you to give us a bit more insight how business users, what is their responsibility in this whole mix of utilizing cloud services? What is the role of and responsibility of the business user in this case? If you can be brief.
So all right, so I just had to share the screen again because it gives the viewers and listeners more insight, a little more visual insight, right? So it depends. It starts with, first of all, understanding your path. You need to understand your application. You need to understand your service delivery model and what you're trying to achieve, right? There's a whole lot of purpose that goes into it. So in the on-prem model, everything was 100% remote. Like there's nobody to point at. Right? So when you're moving to the cloud, you're handing over certain responsibilities, which start, basically physical tenancy of the equipment, right? It becomes the cloud device. So, but everything else, so you need to have clarity and deep understanding of your deployment models, your operations, your operating systems, your middleware, and the data. How so? Because there are a lot of there's data at rest and data in motion, right? So you need to be clear on the encryption levels and what each of them, what their pros and cons are. Because the more, because there's a balance, there has to be a balance between complex the security and usability, because there's something called the security, the CIA triad, right? Confidentiality, integrity, and availability, right? Like the most secure thing for everybody to do is just lock up your application, like shut it down, and of course you're 100% secure, nothing is going to go wrong, right? So that said, starting from the the infrastructure level, you need to be sure you're right. I mean, if you're accessing or if you're integrating with partners, make sure things like IPsec are there. They're not opening going through the open internet. You're not leveraging your applications are not being accessed over HTTPS. I'm giving direct examples, because if I have to go into the security, breaking down the security, each of the I mean, we're not going to live here. You need to have your gateway, same firewalls and web, both the edge firewalls and web applications you would have on-prem. You need to have them in place. Right, the cloud providers run the basics, like even in the IaaS model, they do basic, DDoS, right? Different cloud providers have their own things they offer free. DDoS is usually for free on the basic level, right? Because I mean, they have to make their money too, and there has to be some level of responsibility, because they didn't write applications, they don't know about that. Your applications have to be secure. I mean, they have to go through the proper SDLC process to ensure, do your code scans, the quality, and ensure that there are no bugs, there are minimal bugs on them. So again, exactly same way when you move to the platform, at that point, you've handed over the security of the middleware layer. So, and you can't see, there's no such thing as too much security. The only time you call too much security is when it now borders on the availability part, right? I mean, you're secure enough, you've decided to shut down your application or block entry to it, and nobody can. But again, you're 100% secure, but you're no more in business, right? At that point, there has to be provisions for proactive security, even things like pen tests, like if on your own, engage your either staff or consultant to make attempts to look for holes in your game from the application layer to your infra, and ensure that those things are blocked before the bad guys get to them. So that's it. And there's a very key hole in this process. Whether I would like it or not is the people, right? There's a process for technology. People. It's what those are the components of the business and application delivery. The bulk of the time, the gap is from the primary gap, usually from the people, followed by the process. So you need to have those in place. I mean, that's the reason why. I mean, you have the ISO champions are here at 27001 and 22301, ISMS and BCMS. That's the reason they're in business. And this is why the CDN and regulators put those things in place to ensure that when you go through these rigorous certifications, you have put certain things in place, from your user awareness to your processes and your technology, that you are, you're on point in terms of security and compliance. So, I mean, there's a lot that has to go into it in terms of vetting your providers to ensure you get the ones that provide you with the right use case for your own, business and application delivery.
Okay, thank you so much. So with that response from we've come to the end of the second discussion panel, right? At this point, we'll just want to do a quick poll, just to have a show of hands, specifically to know the SMEs type businesses that are participating in this webinar, and to know their level of cloud adoption. So just a quick poll, and you can respond using the chat box that is on the Zoom platform, right? You can respond using the chat box that is on the Zoom platform. So can you answer, does your business utilize any form of enterprise cloud services today? Does your business utilize any form of enterprise cloud services today? Yes, please. So we'll appreciate it if the participants can go ahead and respond to this poll. Thank you very much. Now, next on our agenda, we seem to be coming to the end of this session. So right now we'll be taking questions that have come in within the webinar, itself. However, we noticed that quite a few questions, in fact, almost all the questions have been responded to by our panelists during the course of the webinar itself. But I have one question here for, Stephen, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay. So someone wants you to wear your MBA hat for a change and take off the CTO hat, right? And so they're asking a question around, we've had a lot of cost savings, as a motivation for adopting cloud, right? So there's a question that has to do with cost predictability and transparency. We know they're essential for SME financial planning. So how do cloud providers assist SMEs to understand and optimize their cloud costs? And also, are there tools and insights that you as a cloud provider offer to SMEs to manage and control this expenditure effectively?
Okay, yes, that's the short answer. And I know we've run out of time. I think Chuks dived into a couple of part of that answer when he was speaking, So there are tools that you can use to predict how much you're going to spend, how much your OPEX will be. Chuku mentioned it earlier. For the most part of it, one of the major gains that you have with cloud is having those right tools that you can use to check how much and draw out a scale, how much you're going to spend in terms of OPEX, over a period of time. And not just the ones that the cloud providers have provided. I think it was Ismaila that was mentioning, 10 years ago, it would have been a problem because those days you had very few cloud providers. But today, beyond those tools that are provided by default on the billing platforms that the cloud providers provide you, there are consultants, there are companies whose job is to cost optimize the efficiency of what you spend with cloud providers, and they have them across multiple platforms. So those tools are there, and a couple of consulting companies that also migrate customers between cloud platforms, do multi-cloud, initiatives for customers, also have these tools in their bed, and they are independent of the set of tools that are provided by the cloud providers. So yes, those tools are there, and it's just sitting down. I would like to put it this way: nobody goes into a battle without first of all sitting down to count the cost. Okechukwu understands this very well because he has had a taste of both on-prem and cloud infrastructure. So the thing is, when you are going in there, you need to be sure of what you are going to spend. That is what will help you plan. And that is what is going to help you, do a CapEx budget or an OPEX budget, that the management will approve. It is different from what you have today, where the diesel cost is running high for guys that are running on-prem. You can't really predict how much FX is going to be tomorrow, and so many other, I would say, inconsistencies in budgeting. So are the tools there? They are there. It's just that a lot of businesses don't take time, and that also comes with, educating our users. Don't take time to sit down and look at those tools and how they can, optimize those costs. I've had a few customers that are consuming some of these big cloud, services come to me and say they are consuming quite a lot. What can we do to optimize the cost that we have? And I'll tell them, okay, let's do an audit. And the truth is, those tools that enables you to do those audits are there. So when you do an audit, you find out, like, Chuk said, somewhere, somehow, some tenant that has access is consuming those services and incurring those extra bills. Once you plug in, measures to control those expenses, you'll be able to predict what you can spend. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stephen.
Yes,
Insightful as well. Yes, please. Please go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you so much, Stephen. That was a very good direction. So I think, we are very open to customers, and I think it's important as consultants, as business leaders, we understand that we are not just going to cloud for the fun of going to cloud. For every investment we make on the cloud, there should be a reciprocal return on that investment. And this is a no-brainer. So whether it's like that when we are on-prem anyway. So an IT manager is not just buying because another customer is buying. You are buying because there's a business need. And for every investment you're making, there is a return on that investment. There should be a positive impact on the bottom line to the business. So this is really how investment in the cloud should be approached. I shared what in the Azure space we call the well-architected framework. This is a framework that guides cloud adopters so that they can look at it from different perspectives. And one of those perspectives is cost optimization. Okay, so if you follow lay down, just like Stephen said, if you follow lay down tools and procedures for going to the cloud, I'm sure overconsumption or the challenge of paying more at the end of every month, every quarter, every year will not arise, because for every investment you're making in the cloud, you're seeing the return on it. You can also see the positive impact it's having on your business. So my take is, by the time you offset the cost against the benefit of agility, benefit of time to market, and all the financial return that an organization gets by going to the cloud, it becomes something you say, yes, we're happy that we went to the cloud. Yesterday, I was talking with some people, and let me just share this very example in the next 1 minute. So 2 customers, they are all on the cloud. They had an issue in their environment on the cloud. The same issue, okay, because the same organization, but in different countries, the same kind of issue. But in one country, in 20 minutes, they were able to have their services back and running. And then these other people were, from morning till 5 p.m. in the evening, they are still trying to resolve the issue. And then they call their counterpart in the other country, say, what happened? How come we had the same issue and you were able to recover fast? And they said to them, what are you doing? They said they are trying to fix the problem. Fix problem in the cloud. It takes you a few minutes to reprovision the environment and recreate what you have been running on and have your services back on. So in less than 20 minutes, this other country recreated the whole environment and brought up all their services, and their customers were able to have their business back online. And then another part, they are busy trying to fix a problem, trying to find where the bug came from, and so on and so forth. And I think this is really where experience and skilling also comes. When you're going to the cloud, there should be those investments you make in training, in growing the knowledge base of the environment, of your people, so that when there are issues, when there are approaches to some line of conversation, they will know what to say about it. They will know how to defend it. So skilling is also very important. On top of adopting those policies and recommendations based on things like the WAF principle, which is well-architected framework. I think every vendor have their own, but I think skilling is so important also for customers who are going to the cloud. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much again, Chooks. And that was an addition that, substantiated Stephen's earlier position.
Yeah.
We've actually run out of time, right? But there's one participant here who, even though Ismaila has responded to, but I think he just wants to hear your voice, Ismaila, right? He's asking, can you speak about organizations who are looking to migrate to the cloud with monolith apps? Could you just explain that in a minute and a half, right? And then we can wrap this up.
All right, thank you very much, Kelechukwu. Yeah, so monolith apps are basically apps that are built from the ground up, and it basically used to be the way um, application development was done back in the day. So, it's a waterfall model. You build all the components, and each time you want to have, a new revision, you have to more or less, tear down the whole thing and start, um, re-architecting the whole application. So it's very different from what you have right now. So right now, what you have is a development that is modularized. So what you have is, you're not taking advantage of microservices. Yeah, so with microservices, the different components of the application are built individually, and then they now integrate and work. So what happens is, if you have a particular module or a part of that application that actually has an issue, it doesn't prevent the entire application from running. So that's how a lot of organizations now build their applications leveraging cloud. So it gives a lot of flexibility. There's a lot of things that can be done. You can have developers actually use different languages to build different parts of the same application, and then they all integrate with APIs and the rest, and run as one single application. So there's a lot of benefit. But the truth of the matter is, there are organizations that have those legacy, we'll call them legacy applications, and they still want to use these applications for whatever reason. It could be an issue of not being able to change platforms at that particular moment because of requirements of certain data. It could be just part of the strategy that the organization has, and the way it works. Cloud will still help you be able to support those applications that you have, those legacy applications. You can move them to the cloud. Usually, what we will do is to assess that application itself, to look at the best way to move that application to the cloud. Are you going to have a lift and shift? So basically, are you going to have an infrastructure that's maybe an infrastructure as a service platform in the cloud, and then just move that application and place it in there? Are you going to be looking at modernizing that application, where you might look at re-architecting that application? So usually we'll handle it on a case-by-case basis. We'll engage with that customer, understand the requirements of that application, the peculiarities of the application, and then make those adjustments to ensure that when it comes to the cloud, it even runs better than whatever experience that you've had on premise. So that's it basically. Then also, to add to what Mr. Chukuma mentioned,
Okay.
around scaling up and knowledge, it's very important that we actually have that. And I know that a lot of cloud providers are doing a lot. So there's a lot of free training, free certifications. Of course, there are paid ones also too that come up. And right now, Oracle is also running a free certification program from now till the end of August, which anyone can take advantage of. So I think I dropped the link in the chat. I can drop it again.
Yeah.
Just go there. It's the cloud services that you have, whether it's Microsoft, whether it's Oracle, whether it's other cloud platforms. There's a lot of similar concepts and designs. So you could use that to at least get you to understand cloud services in general, regardless of whatever platform it is that you're planning on, focusing on or using. So that's it. Sure.
Boom. I mean, so what a way to end this, right? So that just puts a full stop in today's session. Thank you so much. Okay, no, I would leave the thank yous to, I'm calling on Mr. Abiodun Sani. He's one of the commercial business leaders here in RAC Center, and he's going to be giving us the vote of thanks and closing remarks.
Okay, thank you, Kelechuku. I'm so glad, and I'm sure that virtually everybody here is glad. We have really learned, and our objective is actually that the MSMEs will be able to learn one or two things that they can use to improve on their cost effectiveness. So to me, I think I've gained a lot, and we cannot but thank those who have made it to be very possible. We want to thank the facilitators and the panelists. We thank the gentlemen from Inc., from Microsoft, from Oracle and our friend from Cyber Cloud. We have done well and we really appreciate you. We want to thank the audience, the participants. I'm sure we are paying one or two. I just saw something on the chat room, a question, but then there's always room for us to interact after today. So you can always reach out to any of the facilitators or panelists, and they can be there to attend to these questions. So Rack Center for us, this is the second one we're having this year, and it's not ending. As we're concluding on this one, we're going to the next one, and that next one is coming up in the last quarter of this year, and we hope that we can see many of you here in that particular webinar. For the next one, just to give us heads up on what is going to happen, the theme for that next one is cost considerations for an internet exchange point. And then we talk about the effectiveness of IXP, both for technical and TCO consideration. So we hope that we'll be able to have an audience, that will be talking into peering, technical and stuff. So we used to have the CTOs here, those who coordinate peering activities, network leads, infrastructure leads, the next webinar. So we expect that some of those who are here today will be there by the time we meet in the last quarter of this year. We so much thank you, and on behalf of Rack Center Management, I need to also thank my colleagues, especially Kelechuku. He has really done well, and those are the background that you cannot see. They've done well to ensure that we're able to bring this to excellent conclusion. On behalf of management of Rack Center, we wish to thank all of you, and we wish you all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you, the Rack Center team, and thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. Enjoy the rest of your day. Nice meeting you, my fellow speakers, once again. Thank you all.
Same here. Nice meeting everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.